Raoul Pol and Bitcoin maxis are finally realizing the big truth behind Bitcoin. And in this video, I am exposing all of it. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. Let's dive on in real quick. Let's go back to January 16th of this year, where we saw this article come out over on CoinDesk, and it is titled, "Can Crypto Dethrone the US Dollar Dominance?" Here is Morgan Stanley's take. US monetary policy combined with the use of economic sanctions have forced some countries to look for alternatives to the dollar, while growth of stablecoins may have emphasized the need of the fiat currency, the bank said. Now, if we look at this, okay, we have the recent growth in interest of digital assets such as Bitcoin, growth of stablecoin volumes, and the promise of central bank digital currencies have potential to significantly alter the currency landscape. Now, this is the head of digital asset markets at Morgan Stanley. And we also have US monetary policy combined with the use of economic sanctions have forced some countries to look for alternatives to the dollar, adding that a clear shift towards reducing dollar dependency is evident, simultaneously fueling interest in digital currencies such as Bitcoin, stablecoins, and CBDCs. But here is the thing to focus on. On the flip side, he noted that stablecoins pegged to the US dollar are also important as they may actually emphasize the need for the fiat currency. Their continued evolution and growing acceptance by mainstream financial entities underscore their potential to significantly alter the landscape of global finance and in fact reinforce the dollar as the dominant global currency. Now, this is very important to focus on considering the fact that as we really look at, stablecoins and things like that, we are witnessing a significant shift around currency, around finance, around transactions, and it is all towards digital. But what we've been hearing recently is that the BRICS are going to kill the dollar, that the dollar is dead, the dollar is finished, this, that, whatever. And this actually goes all the way back to the summer of 2023 because this has been an echo chamber that's been going on for quite some time. And I even had this post from myself that I said, the dollar is dead, the US is doomed. The perfect problem and the perfect solution is being presented to the world all at once. The problem, 99% of the general public is being distracted. There are significant projects and solutions in this space that could easily make the global monetary system a lot more efficient and bring about a technological revolution like no other. I strongly believe that de-dollarization, use of other settlement currencies and systems, BRICS expanding and developing new currencies is all an accelerant for the new system to rise. Focus on the major connections with the IMF, the blockchain, and DLT that are going to be utilized. Some already are, but without scale, they are preparing the infrastructure is being built. Now, if we go back here, right, this is from the IMF, enduring preeminence. And in this, we actually have the US dollar might slip, but it will continue to roll. The international monetary system may be at the threshold of significant change from a combination of economic, geopolitical, and technological forces. And within this article, we have a mixed blessing. The new technologies will both help and hinder emerging market economies with collateral effects that, coupled with other developments, in the end may enhance dollar dominance rather than erode it. And also over here we have, although digital technologies enable new forms of money that could challenge fiat currencies and set off a new era of domestic and international currency competition, it is equally likely that these new forces will create more centralization, with some currencies accreting even more power and influence. In other words, many of these changes might reinforce rather than weaken the dollar's dominance. Now, building upon this, over here, we have BlackRock pushing Bitcoin. Why have they been pushing Bitcoin so heavily? Well, this is what I personally believe is happening. If we really think about what's been going on with the BRICS, specifically a lot of the BRICS nations, they have started to accumulate massive amounts of gold since going all the way back to 2010. In fact, this is a chart of foreign banks and investors alike that have been flocking to the precious metal over the last year, sending it soaring to record highs. And this is actually the chart of gold and the change. And this goes all the way back from 2009 to 2010. Now, the big thing to really focus in on is the BRICS nations. When did they start buying? Well, they started buying right around 2010. This is right after, 08. This is after the, breaking of the fiat currency system. This is when, fiat currencies and basically, the entire fiat currency system showed what it's really all about, which is it's propped up. It's never going back to normal. They are going to massively print money. And I do believe that from that point on, because right around 2009, right around 2010, what did we get? We got the launch of Bitcoin. Now, is it really crazy to believe that all of this was by plan? Well, when we go over here, listen to what BlackRock really is saying. We have, for the first 3 years, I was a naysayer. And about 2 years, then I switched and I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. BlackRock now hodls over 365,000 Bitcoin worth over $24 billion. Check it out.
It's the first time we've had an opportunity to talk to you about it, which is Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ETF. We're going to be talking to Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, who made that decision reluctantly, maybe even begrudgingly, which was announced just 2 days ago, and we talked a lot about yesterday on the broadcast. How big a deal is that for BlackRock? And this was for you a big switch as well, because you were a naysayer for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I probably switched for the first 3 years of thinking about it. I was a naysayer, and about 2 years ago I switched. And I'm actually, you know, as I said in the last 2 years, I'm a big believer.
Are you a believer personally? Meaning, is the Fink family a Bitcoin buyer or a buyer of this new ETF?
Well, now I could do that. I cannot, you know, I don't want to compete with our clients, so I don't buy single assets. I'll buy mutual funds. I'll buy single ETFs. So I have an opportunity to do that now. But I'm a believer in it because I do believe it is an alternative source for wealth holding. I don't believe it's ever going to be a currency. I believe it's an asset class.
You don't believe it ever becomes a currency?
No, I think we're going to create digital currencies. We're going to use the technology for it. We're going to use the blockchain.
How important is that, though, to then the long-term value proposition
of Bitcoin?
Of Bitcoin. If it's not something that ultimately becomes a currency, if it's simply, we'll call it digital gold, it's an asset of some sort, what does that mean?
It means,
in terms of price,
I believe, you know, I believe it goes up if the world is more frightened, if people have fearful of geopolitical risk, they're fearful of their own risk. It's no different than what gold represented over thousands of years. It is a asset class that protects you.
Right.
And unlike gold, where we manufacture new gold, we're almost at the ceiling of the amount of Bitcoin.
So they're always pushing, right? Always, you know, saying like, you know, Bitcoin's this, Bitcoin's that, whatever. And even more recently, BlackRock is marketing Bitcoin hard. CEO says it needs to be in portfolios for uncorrelated returns. Check it out.
I believe Bitcoin is legitimate. I'm not trying to say there's not misuses like everything else, but it is a legitimate financial instrument that allows you to have maybe uncorrelated, non-correlated type of returns. I believe it is an instrument that you invest in when you're more frightened, though. It is an instrument when you believe that countries are debasing their currency, debasing their currency by excess deficits, and some countries are. I believe we have countries where you're frightened of your everyday existence, and if you have an opportunity to invest in something that is outside your country's control, then you can have more financial control. And so I'm a major believer that there is a role for Bitcoin in portfolios.
So there you guys have it. And again, you know, I want to say the warning that I said the other day, which is the fact that like they're not going to go on TV and give you opportunities to get rich and protect yourselves. What's happening here is that BlackRock is in a position and they have a role to push Bitcoin heavily, market it to the sheep, to the retail sector, and this is to prop the dollar up. At a time where de-dollarization is at all-time highs, all these major nations are pushing back against the US dollar and the US financial system, and with BlackRock's ETF and with Fidelity's ETF and all these ETFs around the US, what this does is not only does it bring in a ton of Bitcoin to the US, but it also allows the US dollar, because you got to remember, the most liquid pair for Bitcoin is the US dollar pair. It allows for the US dollar to become even stronger through these digital currencies. And the same goes with even stablecoins. But the problem here is the true factor behind Bitcoin. Raoul Pal said it. The truth finally came out. After stating the connection between Bitcoin and the intelligence agencies for years, smart people are figuring it out. Raoul Pal, former Goldman Sachs. Check it out.
Tell me more. I said, and I think the US government and the UK government invented it, which is the NSA and the GCHQ in the UK, who are the two world centers of cryptography. Because even how the white paper's written, it's
You think
this
they're
transatlantic.
Satoshi?
Yes. I always have. And I asked the Department of Defense, they said, yeah, we've considered that too. That
Interesting.
they
Do you
seeded
think it was official,
experiments.
or it was just people from that went rogue?
I don't think it's necessarily a rogueness. I think like Google have like Google X, where they do tons of experiments, right? They know that one of the esoteric risks for the entire Western system is the issue of money. So there's probably groups of people who are given things to try. And if you can seed a new system, maybe they tried 100 of these and just one succeeded. We don't know. But it would make sense because that's what they do, this kind of stuff. So one of these took off. And so I think it's always been. I don't think it's a coincidence it came out of the financial crisis. I don't think it's a coincidence that the halving cycle and all of this is all related.
And I completely agree, right? Because again, we got to think about this logically. All right. Central banks started to rush to buy gold right around 2010, right around the same exact time that Bitcoin was announced, right? It was pushed, it was launched around the same exact time. On top of this, right? Yeah. Bitcoin follows the liquidity cycle to a T. It follows the election years to a T. It is no coincidence, in my opinion. I believe that this was completely planned. And yeah, I do believe that the government is behind this. I've said this 100 times over on this channel. And also, if we go over to this video, this is actually with Catherine Austin Fitts. This is also with Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin. This is from a podcast titled Using Bitcoin and Stablecoins to Expand Dollar Dominance. As the world struggles with the dangers of central bank digital currencies and financial control by the banks, it also struggles with how private currencies can make us free, as opposed to creating an even more dangerous form of private financial transaction control. Webb and Goodwin explore these questions and more in their new investigative series on the chain of issuance and the chain of custody, including connecting the dots with the networks that Webb explored in her 2-volume blockbuster on the Epstein money laundering networks, One Nation Under Blackmail. Now, before I play this clip, I also want to quickly say, the whole idea that everyone has been talking about Bitcoin being, a safe currency to, go and buy and sell and trade, and you can do all this stuff with it because everything's all private. It's, it's this, that, whatever. When we think about crypto is extremely transparent. It's not like using a $100 bill. All the transactions on chain can be seen. They can be tracked, traced. They know exactly who these wallets are, tied to through an IP. If you're even using a VPN, again, there's ways to track it. There's ways to trace it. And it's only getting more and more intensive in terms of, being able to be tracked and traced. So when we really think about what's going on here, when we think about Bitcoin, all these people that keep pushing the fact that Bitcoin is, free money, it's freedom money, you can never be tracked, it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's the number one reason why I do believe that the government was behind all of this, because why would the government, make something that is so transparent? Everything's trackable, everything's traceable, and everyone thinks it's, free money, it's an escape from the traditional system and from the big banks and from it's nonsense. But listen closely to this.
Just let me stop for a second.
Sure.
So 90 or so % of the ETFs, so exchange traded funds on Wall Street that own Bitcoin. So instead of me having to get a wallet or get an account on an exchange, I can go to Fidelity or Schwab and I can just click and point, and I can buy Bitcoin in the form of a stock, right?
Yep.
And so Fidelity or BlackRock have to worry about being the custodian. Okay, 90+% of the volume of the ETFs right now are custodian at Coinbase custody. Okay?
Yep.
But
Yes.
now, and I'm going to do this slowly and carefully, the U.S. Marshals manage the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund. And the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund has now seized over 200,000 Bitcoin. And they chose Coinbase Custody to be their custodian. So now we have the Department of Justice and Wall Street sharing one custodian. Do you have any idea how frightening that feels to me?
Adding to that is the fact that during the last, when Trump was in office, under Steve Mnuchin, there were direct discussions, I believe direct meetings between the Treasury Department with Coinbase and Zappos specifically. And Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and who was a top advisor, had discussed openly with Mnuchin the possibility of creating the USD currency or USDC before Circle's USDC dollar stablecoin even existed. And this was coming from a Sam Altman blog post. And of course, Sam Altman is one of the main proteges of Peter Thiel, who is also very involved in this space. And actually, Wences is frequently referred to as the Peter Thiel of Latin America and has in an extreme amount of connections to the so-called PayPal mafia, of which Peter Thiel is part, which is what we discussed in our last piece, this Endeavor network that's tied to people like Reid Hoffman of PayPal mafia fame, and also Pierre Omidyar, who bought PayPal from Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the other co-founders of PayPal, and who is the creator of eBay, which has always been essentially very intertwined with PayPal, at least for more than 20 years.
So yeah, I mean, as we really think about all of this, it's a food chain. It's a food chain of the elites. And, as we do look at crypto and we look at Bitcoin and we look at all these ETFs, you can clearly see the end goal focus here. It's boosting the dollar dominance. Everyone that's saying like, oh, I'm going to buy Bitcoin to, get away from fiat currencies. We're supporting these fiat currencies. Even the Federal Reserve governor told you that USD peg stablecoins are boosting US dominance. DeFi is boosting US dollar dominance. These ETFs are boosting US dollar dominance. It is so comical. And you can now see the big picture. You can see the big picture. These types of currencies, they were just waiting for, it to hit. And now that it's this big, it is supporting the monopoly system that we were trying to move away from. But we definitely are going digital, in my opinion. I believe that we are moving away from fiat currencies. We're moving towards digital currencies. It is now the big deal. Crypto is far too big to ignore. And I think that you need to pick and choose what assets you really want to hold in this space. I personally am avoiding the assets that elites like BlackRock are literally shilling you on mainstream media, because this can't end well in my opinion. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, set notifications on. If you guys want more free content, you guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.